What is up, YouTube? It's been a while since I made a video, and what's it called? I've been seeing a whole bunch of stuff going on online, and a lot of coverage about the Pixel 3, and it makes me like wonder why is it that when the Pixel devices come out, since the inception of the Pixel devices, and the past Nexus devices before the Pixel line even started, like you always find reviewers saying overly positive things about these devices. When you like read certain forums, you find out that a lot of times there are a lot of issues that come with these devices. I watched a review from a guy today. I'm not gonna mention names. Some an Indian review, but the guy spoke English anyway, and the guy talked about certain issues and how he had to go and look for a fix. If it was any other brand, the Pixel lines, if they were any other brand, any other OEM, any other manufacturer made these, the Pixels would be shitted on. And we know this for a fact because phones with similar features and so like phones that offered basically the same functionality, save for the camera, they were all shitted on. The Essential phone, apart from the camera, gave generally the same experience as the Pixels, but it was massively shat on. Uh, HTC, I think, is a U11, had the squeeze functionality, which allowed you, I think you could call up Google Assistant and some other functionality. I think it was even remappable. Got shitted on, said the feature was a gimmick. Uh, what else? Other devices with notches don't get as much of a pass. Other devices with the within the same price range that would have, even if they had a close to stock experience and had only 4 gigs of RAM, wouldn't get a pass. So why does the Pixel get a pass? The camera is great, but if you watch the comparisons, it's not that much greater than other devices. It's great. It's great. It has good dynamic range, but if you watch a lot of comparison videos, reviewers constantly talk about the fact that some photos look over processed, and there's a lot of contrast, a lot of stuff, they use a lot of these terms. I take photos for a living personally, and I could tell you that when I look at certain photos come out of certain devices and look pleasing at times, more so than the Pixel. And a lot of those devices, save for the iPhone, offer functionality that allow you to tweak the image beforehand with the Pro mode, and you can come out with some great features. I mean, great looking pictures. So the camera is good. It's really good. Very, and it's optimized for social media, so it's social media friendly, meaning that you're gonna have nicer pictures on Snapchat. Though more people actively use Instagram. Unless I'm wrong, you could quote me on that, and then if I'm wrong, just let me know. I feel like the Pixel devices get an unwarranted pass with subpar hardware. They usually, I watch speed tests, and phones without stock Android outperforming stock Android phones. Let's get into stock Android. Okay, let me sit. Let me adjust myself. There's always been this fetish with reviewers to talk about stock Android as if it's the cream of the crop, it's the best of the best, it's this and it's that. So let's talk about Android and what it was made for. The reason why manufacturers go in for Android is because they don't want to spend all that money developing an operating system from the ground up and then having to spend all those resources, all that time trying to make sure that developers make apps and then optimize those apps for their new platform. all while not being sure if people will enough people will patronize the platform, because without enough people, sorry for my stuttering this evening, because if enough people don't patronize the platform, what happens is not enough people are going to download those apps. So those developers are going to lose money because they're going to spend time and money developing those apps for these new platforms. So if there's not enough people on the platform, it's not productive, and it makes zero sense to continue to develop towards this platform. That's why you're not gonna find new versions of WhatsApp on a Symbian phone. I don't know. I doubt it. I doubt that you get any updates in 2018 on a phone that's running Symbian. Even though I have seen a few people using Symbian in the wild. A few people using Symbian in the wild, yeah. But it wouldn't make sense. It doesn't make any logical sense to update it for Symbian. How many people are using it? There are new phones coming out every year. Majority of them are running Android. Android is an open source operating system. That means anybody, your grandmother, your son, your daughter could download it and tweak it to their liking. So why not, as a company, tweak the software to look like what you wish your own software would look like, and then use it, because it's already a platform that has a lot of apps, a lot more apps than even iOS. Not as many quality apps, but a lot more apps nonetheless. And it has a lot more users. Why not enter that market? You understand what I'm saying? So there's this general idea against amongst the Android peers that Android is supposed to look a certain way. No, it's not. It's an open source operating system. It's supposed to look like whoever wants it to look like wants it to look like. If that makes any sense, I don't even know if I said that right. So if I want it to look like an apple, I'm gonna make it look like an apple. It doesn't need to look like stock Android. If you don't like it, and it doesn't look like stock, go and buy a phone that runs stock Android. It's that simple. So when I constantly watch a review and you see people saying over and over, I wish it ran stock, go and buy a stock Android phone. You bump. I don't want to say anything. Let me not say anything offensive to offend anybody, but it's annoying. It's annoying. And you keep hearing it over and over again. And there are phones that come out and they outperform these stock Android phones, and all the things that these people have lied to us for years and told us that stock Android does. They say Alpha is the best battery life. Pound for pound, no, it does not. There are a lot of other OEM third-party manufacturers that produce phones with similar sized batteries with better performance and better battery life. So stock Android does not give you better battery life. Stock Android doesn't give you better battery life. It doesn't give you generally better performance. All of that happens in post. All of that stuff happens in post. I mean, I remember the BlackBerry Priv came out running a close to stock build in terms of appearance, and that's usually what they use to determine whether the software is light or not. They don't open up the settings and see how much RAM is taken up or how many services are running in the background. They just look at this is close to stock Android because the launcher looks like stock Android. It's annoying. It's super annoying, and it's non-factual. It's stupid. It's annoying, and a lot of people watch these reviewers say things that are generally false, like RAM not affecting performance when it obviously does, and then they run with the idea that everybody needs to have their phone set a certain way. When it's not really true. That's not really true at all. So these reviewers give Google a pass everywhere, and then prop Google up to seem like it's a better, like they're doing everything better than everyone else, and that's not generally true at all. In the past, a lot of phone manufacturers that had heavy UIs or UIs that didn't look close to stock Android, they usually had issues, especially Samsung. And Samsung didn't have issues because the UI was different looking. It's because they had a lot of crap on their phones. They had a lot of unnecessary features, and those features ran in the background. And while they were running in the background, they were taking up resources like RAM and storage. And when your storage is getting full and your RAM is full, you have performance hiccups. So when you start opening more and more apps, what happens is all of them start fighting for resources, and you have app crashes, and you have hiccups and slowdowns. That's usually what happens when you have not enough hardware. So let's also talk about hardware a little bit. This is a long rant. Hardware matters. Hardware matters. I keep hearing people say optimization, this and that. Optimization will take you so far. Optimization just means that the software is taking full advantage of the hardware. That's all optimization is. It doesn't mean that there's some sort of magic happening. It just means it's doing its best with the hardware it's given. So the performance seems to be good, but at the end of the day, a 2 gig phone or a 2 gig PC or 2 gig any computer will not run as smoothly as a computer that has much more RAM, much more storage, unless the operating system on that computer is total garbage. For example, you have the system fighting with the extra features for storage and all this, and that's usually what happens. As time went on, Samsung started reducing the amount of features that they had, and a lot of things weren't running in the background. But the UI generally has zero to do with how the phone will perform. Because when the phone is performing, when the UI is different, it's just a different overlay. It just has different looking icons. That doesn't really affect performance unless you have a lot more data to display than the other device, and that's not usually the case. So usually you find people saying that close to stock performing better. It's a lie, because a lot of these Chinese companies and their phones tend to perform very well. The ones that look like iOS, they tend to perform very well. They perform very fine. And there are some phones that looked kind of stocky that performed like shit. So looking at a phone to determine whether it's close to stock or not, that's dumb. It's been a dumb thing for a long time, and it's a narrative that's spread out through the community. And unfortunately, people pick it up, and it's unfortunate that we have reviewers who don't do the due diligence to actually just say, nah, this, to just say things the way they are, except for recently when Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, came out and then talked about how there was lag on the Pixel phones, which was actually, I felt that was good, because like for the first time somebody actually stated certain things that we've even heard of before. I've heard of Pixel phones and Nexus devices having hiccups and stutters before, but always wondered why reviewers wouldn't come out and just say that, yo, this doesn't perform that good. It's not as good as people make it seem. So you might want to steer clear of it. And they always say it has the best experience based on, I don't know what they base that on. I've used phones. I have a stock launcher on my phone because I like the animations, the way they look. I don't use it because it's faster. Because actually, in actuality, when you put a launcher on your phone, you're actually taking up more resources, and then in the long run, it could start crashing and having issues. I've done that in the past with my Note 4 and my S3, and it didn't turn out very well. And then I think I used like a Nexus 4 for a while. And, I mean, yeah, when you don't have a lot of things running in the background, a lot of apps taking up resources, you usually find that your performance will do fine. So a phone made by Samsung is probably best. It's probably best with a minimal amount of apps and then a lot of storage and a lot of RAM because it's just doing too much. So when you throw a whole bunch of features in there, then you have a lot of things. So the pixels, apart from the camera, like let's get back to the pixels. Apart from the camera, there's no real standout feature, and also the call screening thing is actually kind of cool. I think it's cool. It's a cool feature. Is it a feature that's worth buying a phone for? Maybe actually when you think about it, because maybe you're a business type. Maybe you're a person who keeps getting spam calls and you want to make sure. Even maybe you're a person who's political and you keep getting death threats. You want to know exactly what the other person on the other side of the line is actually saying. It's kind of like having a secretary. It's like actually a cool feature, and it might make the phone worth the amount to the people who think that those the worth of a device. Let me say this, right? I don't think I can justify or not justify the worth of a device that I don't find interest in. So the value of the money that they're charging, it's to a specific demographic, and I don't fit into the demographic that they are trying to target. So it would be kind of hypocritical to say that this is worth the money or not. But to me, it's not quite worth the money. I would think that the Pixel phones should top out at $100 max, $800 max. You're not offering the same level of specs, and you're not justifying it enough. The speed tests and the RAM management tests kind of show that there's no extraordinary performance gains here. There's nothing. It's not out. It's not outperforming phones with similar specs. It's performing similar to last year, just opening apps a couple fractions of the second faster. Does that even matter anymore when people are comfortable rocking Note 5, I mean S5s from 2014 in public? People are rocking S5s, and I ask people who are rocking S5s and iPhone 5s if the phone performs good enough for them, and they say it's fine. Is that justifiable, the speed gains? But in the same veins, for me to make that kind of statement, do I have to also examine whether complaining about the 2 gigs of RAM is justifiable then? So I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Is the Pixel 3 XL and 3 worth it? Is it, as I said before, it's dependent on what you want from your smartphone and what you want to use it for. So it's like I'm rambling on and on talking about a whole bunch of stuff. What exactly are we trying to say here, I guess? And I think what it is the unwarranted hype of the device, I feel, is not justified. The camera, pretty good. It's good. It's probably the best camera. Maybe arguably that, and maybe the Mate 20. I don't know. One of those Huawei phones have real good cameras. But it's good. Is it much better than everybody else's? No, it's a phone camera. It's not leaps. It's not a DSLR. It's not a DSLR with an f1.2 lens. You get what I'm saying? It's not that, but it's good. It's a good point and shoot. Is that worth the money? The storage it tops out at 128 and starts at 64, which is mediocre, and you cannot expand it. I'm using a Note 9, 128 gig, 256 gig SD card. somebody like me, I find that I run out of storage unless I do the due diligence and go back in and delete certain things. So to not make this video over 25 minutes, we'll use the last 4 minutes to talk about what the device gets right, because it seems like I'm shitting on the device. What the device gets right is a minimalist experience that doesn't offer way too much or way too little. And it does so in spite of the subpar hardware, which I always point out that the hardware is subpar. It's not the best of the best material. It's not the best of the best design. Or to me, the best of the best display, even though DisplayMate would say have you believe otherwise. It doesn't have the best of the best camera module, but the software is what makes the whole thing combine and mesh together and create a package that's really, really good. So you get 3 years of updates, and that's laudable, because Samsung will charge you an arm and a leg and give you 2 years of updates, and after the first year you feel like you didn't even buy a flagship phone, that you bought maybe a mid-tier or low-end phone, because they will ignore you. They will ignore you. That's what Samsung does to the old models. They pretend like nobody bought those old models for over $1,000. So that customer service level, it might be top tier in Android land. What else does it get right? Speakers in the front. The selfie camera is incredible. The screens are good. They give you a dongle in the box, because iPhones don't do that. They give you the fast charger in the box. At the end of the day, is it worth the same price as a Note 8 or a Note 9 now? It depends on what you value. I would say no. I'd say $800, it's a go. But if you value certain things, a certain level of things, the best camera and the good software. And when I say good software, I'm not saying that it's going to give you better performance, because as we've said before, and even in these performance tests, you can see that after you continuously open more and more apps, it starts to give you a little bit of a hiccup. Joshua Vergara said in his review of it, or his pre-review, that there's some stutter here and there in the interface. So it's not going to give you that super duper best performance that everybody's hyping it up to do. It's going to give you some snappy performance, but not much more than any other device. Not leaps and bounds better than any device in its fighting class. We got less than a minute left. So let's decide. Is the Pixel 3 XL worth all of the hoopla? Is it worth all of the praise that it's getting? To me, no. But is it worth giving a shot? Yes. If you own any Galaxy device from the S9, the S8, probably should steer clear of this thing. That's what I think anyway. Unless stock Android is your thing. If not, then it's probably not worth it. At least that's my advice, or my perception. This has been a long, incoherent rant. Peace out.